before you go, might you just say a few words to promote the documentary, please?
Thank you so much for tuning in to last week's episode. I didn't realize that so many of you would enjoy it the way you did. And thanks to Disclosure for the support. I'm going to try and create more episodes in that style, but just give me some time to fit in there. Sound design. Let's talk about it. Almost 10 years ago, Tennyson put out this record, and upon the outro of track 2 appeared all of this wonderful sound design. Literally, any time it came on shuffle, I'd be constantly bamboozled by the impression that someone was knocking on the door, and I'd take off my headphones to check, only to realize that he got me again. Of course, this technique has been used before that and since to varying degrees of success, but I think with the ever-decreasing attention span of the TikTok audience, this is a great way to pull them back in and immerse your audience with compositional storytelling. It's super easy to achieve, and for the most part, I'm making use of reverb chambers. Let's dive into the project and I'll show you how I laid things out. So for today's example, I only really had 8 bars of music, which I arranged as a kind of outro track. It's here you want to duplicate things. I created 4 sections and focused on the storytelling that I wanted to convey. I actually dived deeper into this at the Patreon, showing the mock-up project and rough storyboard that I made. And you can also download this project and stems over there, of course, too. But overall, I think about the emotion, space, and dynamics that I want to achieve for each section of the song. You don't want to make it too repetitive, so for at least 2 sections, I wanted to structure. In other places, I wanted spacious gaps to draw the listener's attention and let things breathe. I wanted to drastically change the mood in one part and get granular with the finale. Switching up the song structure is pretty easy. You can resample a section and then play it in via the simpler as a new rhythm. Or you can re-pitch a couple of bars and remove the drums. Granular stuff isn't too hard either. Stretch out 1 or 2 bars of your track and grab the granulator, which is free in Ableton, and play the sample backwards, automating the position, grain size, and spread. My absolute favorite part of all of this though is replicating spaces that aren't just wide open reverbs, and I've done that with the help of a new plugin actually from Clevergrand called Revolve. My main attraction to this plugin was the fact that it was able to so easily replicate that dead slap back sound of an outdoor setting. Let's actually dive into this real quick and then I'll come back to the project. When I downloaded Revolve, I was like, okay, this is a reverb with a fun UI that reminds me of Encarta. I loved Encarta, by the way. But when I realized you can actually click on the chosen space and change the microphones used to capture that environment, or the distance to which the microphones are capturing the sound source in that environment, as well as just take a minute to appreciate what historical space you're replicating, I realized that this is just a charming plugin. And I don't expect everybody to understand, but it just kind of reminds me of when I first got into learning about production and sound. It was experimental, it felt like a game, and I really took my time. And I think including the fun facts about the spaces and having this book-like interface kind of makes you slow down, at least for me anyway. I can't really explain it. But getting back to the project, I feel like using Revolve is the perfect way to replicate the spaces I wanted. The feeling of the headphone volume bouncing off the walls of my home, switching that space to something ethereal when the door opens, as if you're actually walking into another dimension. Of course, it's a great natural reverb to use as well. I've got it on the sends here as a dynamic splash on every other clap. But I think utilizing it on a group really allows your listener to immerse themselves in a world that you've created. Once you've laid out your arrangement and made the space feel believable, it's so easy to pile on the Foley sounds and make your listener feel like they've been taken away from the music. My inspiration this week was, of course, Tennyson's Like What? And in that track, you're made to feel like you're running around an apartment with the music playing through a phone. I've gone with the idea that you're not quite sure where the sound source is, and each door you open changes the music ever so slightly. There's a ton of different ways to go about this technique in its entirety, and a whole host of ways that you can apply Foley, whether it be one-shot samples, found sounds, or sound designing your own. But it's crucial to remember to add space to those sounds too. Don't make something like a knock on a door feel like it's happening inside a vacuum, or you'll lose the listener. You need to be sprinkling in a touch of space so that rapping on a cottage bedroom door feels as claustrophobic as it should, or that pounding on a farmhouse door does feel like it could wake the pigs. Don't forget you can tie all the sections together with subtle sweeps, risers, and atmospheric sounds. Now that you know how the magic's made, I'd suggest going back to the beginning of the video so you can really appreciate all the sounds that were there in the intro. And there we have it, guys. I hope this episode was helpful. And don't forget, you can grab this project and the stems over at the Patreon. And if you're creating wonderful music of your own, don't forget that you can share it with our community over at the Discord. And if you're yet to put any music out, I'd strongly suggest doing it with the help of today's sponsor, DistroKid, as well as automatically populating your music to almost every available streaming platform. They can also help you build your website, create an official TikTok artist account, help you with your promotional material, and ensure your music is on all the right playlists. Right now, everybody's getting a discount too, with the students getting 50% off and everybody else getting 7% off the year, and both of those links are in my description. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll see you next time.